Broadcasting from the Vancouver Convention Center in British Columbia, Solutions Review is on location at the FME User Conference 2022, the peak of data integration, brought to you by Safe Software.
We are here at the FME User Conference 2022 in Vancouver, and we are joined today by Jean-Luc Miserez from INSER, CEO of INSER.
Yep.
And David Reksten, who is the FME specialist at INSER and can certainly offer some technical insights around FME. But first, I'd love to get a sense of where INSER is currently, where you've been working with. I know you've been with FME for
nearly 20 years,
a couple decades.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the kind of the higher resolution story around INSER.
Yeah, INSER is a Swiss-based company. We're based in Western Switzerland, French-speaking side, about 23 staff. And we're providing services to all types of customers, public, private. About 20%, about half of the companies working daily with FME, integrating data, transforming the data, solving data integration, data transformation challenges, like on a daily basis for a very wide range of customers.
Yeah, so David, tell me a little bit about where you're seeing traction within these organizations. Where's INSER finding engagements?
So I would say that in some parts it's through the technical departments. They come to us because they have a technical requirement, but we also see more and more that the top level executives are coming to us because they see a greater need in the organization to integrate more of the data to get better results and get a better overview of what's going on in the organization. And sometimes they also have like larger scale projects where they really need to make several departments work together. And sometimes they contact us and say, well, we need to get something going here to get the data to talk together, assemble the data, and get a solution out of it that's more than the sum of the components.
Yeah, and usually when they realize that they have data all over the place, they want to exchange them, the data quality quickly comes as an issue. And that's where we also help them checking that data quality, making sure that you get the right data at the right time in the right form. And that is also something that we're offering with FME.
Well, so continue down that path. So what is the value proposition of FME to an organization of a certain type?
It lets you fairly easily set up your processes. So could be data exchange, could be data integration, data transformation, or quality assurance checks. You can pretty easily start something like on a prototype base without big overhead. You can get something running and showing quite quickly. And then it also lets you work on a professional side. So once you've done your prototype, you can build up on your FME process to make it something really professional and like enterprise-based for your data integration. And that is the nice power. That is you can show something quickly, and then you can scale it up to a professional enterprise-based solution that gets into production.
And so when you're finding the engagement coming together, who is typically in the room with you making these decisions at these organizations? What kind of level of executive? Where are their roles in the organization? I mean, what are you finding?
Depends on where we are in the project. Of course, in the beginning, we often have like upper level department directors who are joining in on the discussions to kind of define the project, to define the deliverables. Then more and more, we are talking directly to the technical people with project managers, etc. And then with some check-ins going back up to the higher level organization. So I think we communicate pretty good with a broad spectrum of the organization. And often, if the project was a particular success, we usually have a presentation or sort of we're showing off the solution to the top level executives. That kind of also very often it kind of solidifies our position within the organization. But I would say also that FME is fantastic for getting data out of silos. And that is something that's very interesting. And that is something that often surprises people in these organizations, because often they are so used to having these huge data silos. and they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit, because culturally, getting people to release their data into new technologies and so forth can be a little difficult. Can you speak a little bit about what you find in terms of resistance and how FME can overcome that?
Yeah, resistance is typically coming from saying, will I still be able to find my data at that place? So I've been working for years, I've been putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into that infrastructure. Is it going to stay there, and is it going to stay in the right quality there? That's one thing. Second is definitely security. So you're moving my data around, you're transforming it. Is it still secure? Are you opening a breach into my infrastructure? Are you opening some kind of a backdoor which could give access to my sensitive data? We're working, probably talk about this later on, but we're working with humanitarian organizations where they have people's names in it. It's critical. It's life-threatening when we release the data. So security is definitely a huge issue.
Yeah. So how do you overcome that? How do you get them to get comfortable with that objection?
I think what often works is to show how adaptable the process is in FME, because you can work so quickly and you're so agile when you develop something with them. Often you see that these huge data silos, it could be an enterprise-wide database, or it could be an old web service that's been lingering and existed for years and years. And sometimes you need to connect to them, but there are many organizations that are so used that it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time to get something up and running. But with FME, sometimes you can get something up and running in, let's say, half a day if you have the right access to the data. And if you manage to show that off, and that's an incredible value proposition to them. It's like suddenly they can see the data in a different system. And you can show them that if you change anything in your database or in your web service, I can just change these few settings here, and suddenly we're up and running with the new setup or
and
the
they can see that
new
value
schema
straight away.
Yeah, and once you get to that point, the client is really easy.
Much easier to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
And then I'm sure you're bringing a service layer to the engagement as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that adds another layer of comfort.
Yeah, definitely. We're bringing our 20 years experience. We're bringing also the fact that we have people that have been working in several projects in different contexts. And that brings, that allows us to link the experiences among projects, and without disclosing anything critical, but still we're bringing our experience and saying, okay, I've been working on some kind of federal agency on that type of thing. You're humanitarian, but that might be relevant for you. And then a few months later, you work with the railway infrastructure, and you still find some common points, and this experience can be used and can be given to profit of the client. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. This is a very international event. There's folks from all over. You're from Switzerland. We just spoke to some folks from Australia, and we're speaking to 2 or 3 other countries as well. And it's fascinating to me that it seems like that what's happening in Europe is actually more on the cutting edge right now than what's happening elsewhere in the world. And I'm curious if you have some success stories you might want to share, or at least maybe some examples of how you're using FME to really kind of make an impact with organizations. Because most of these organizations you're working with are complex and culturally impactful.
Yeah. It's hard for me to compare to against what's going on in the US or somewhere in North America, but we can say that we have a big trend of putting this data together and then leveraging cloud solutions, for example. And the example I was mentioning before, that is typically in Geneva, we have large humanitarian organizations that are based there, and geodata, data and geographical data in particular, it's critical for them. So you get a team sent out for an earthquake, for tsunami, for emergency operation. You need to know what you have there. You need some base maps. You need some infrastructure data. You need the emergency data. You need satellite imagery. You even need weather data. What's going to happen when my team gets there? Is it going to pour rain for a week, or is it scorching hot? Those are all things you got to know. Plus, you have to know, you probably had a colleague that was at that spot a couple of years before, and he's been surveying data, he's been collecting data. Where is that data? How can I access it, and how valuable is it to me in that current earthquake or operation situation? And this is an area where we mix all this data, we guarantee it's available, we guarantee it's of good quality, it's documented, it's reachable, and that the field operation people can also take them along. And that is an area where I think we can make a difference on the daily operations.
Yeah, this is what I think is so fascinating about this particular solution, is that you're bringing in data that just, quite frankly, most organizations aren't there yet. Their data integration is, while it may appear sophisticated internally to them, is rudimentary compared to what it can be with a solution like this. And I'm curious whether you have any advice, David, around how people what they should be thinking about in order to try to get to that next level and get out of that kind of more, traditional thinking.
Yeah, we're very solution-oriented in our approach, meaning that before we try to develop anything on a technical level, we really need to understand the client and to understand their needs. And it's particularly true for the humanitarian side, because they have some very particular needs. As Jean-Luc mentioned, they have people out in the field. They might be stationed for a month in a place, let's say in Africa, where they do not have reliable electricity. They may or may not have any internet. Maybe they need to travel to get a little bit of internet. So they're there with their laptops, but the laptop may not be operational. They might not have any network,
right.
And they cannot stop working. They need to continue working because it's so urgent. And when you really need to switch into that mindset and kind of be one with the client in what kind of particular needs they have and how they need to protect, let's say, the identity of the people out in the fields, because they could be sent to war zones potentially. So you don't want to have the names of the people sent to those sites being publicly available, perhaps not even within the organization.
It's amazing how impactful this particular solution can be at the human level. When you start getting into examples like that, I'm gonna ask you the same question with regard to advice. As people are thinking about this, and I know you've been doing this a long time, and you have a very practical perspective on it. Yeah. What advice do you want to?
Yeah, what I tend to say to those type of people when I meet them is step back from your technical ideas. So you probably had a perspective saying how you could do it. What can I get? What should I get to solve my problems? My question is rather to be, tell me your story in words. Tell me what you need, and then we'll work from this.
Yeah, that's great. Well, this was great. Jean-Luc, David, INSER, sounds like you guys are having a great run. Thanks for being here. Best of luck with the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
And have a great rest of the year.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, great.